Calvin Anderson, Student Empowerment Program, StopStigmaNow.org. Good morning. What's your name?
Carolyn Hardin.
Carolyn, I am at the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, and you're celebrating your 30th year. Carolyn, what do you do with NADCP?
Yes, I'm the Chief of Training and Research for the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. I oversee all the training and technical assistance, which is done in our three divisions: the National Drug Court Institute, the National Center for DWI Courts, and Justice for Vets. What do we do at under our divisions is we provide free training and technical assistance, which is sponsored and paid for by different branches of the federal government, which allows us to provide free on-site training, technical assistance with the courts to help them implement a treatment court, to maintain a treatment court, and to ensure that they run according to fidelity to the model. I also oversee the collection of different research to ensure that best practices and research is implemented in our trainings, and that is what the courts are being held accountable to do.
Carolyn, what's your background?
So I have a background in working in treatment courts, doing case management, evaluation, and some community supervision with those populations.
I know that you distinguish a few types of courts. What are usually the team members of a drug court? I know the veteran court is different from the regular drug court.
So there are some core team members. So first you have to have a judge, you have to have a prosecutor, you have to have a defense attorney, you have to have a treatment provider, you have to have a court coordinator, probation officer, and law enforcement. So those are your core people no matter which model. If you are doing a tribal healing to wellness court, they usually have someone from a community member, a tribal elder, that also sits on their team. If you are doing a veterans treatment court, you have someone who is called a mentor coordinator, and those are for the volunteer mentors that work with the programs. And you also have a veterans justice outreach specialist. If you're doing juvenile drug courts, you may have someone from the schools, you have a school officer, and sometimes you also have someone from the school board or principals or counselors from the schools that are working with you. So each model has some different intricacies of who's involved, but the whole part is that work together as a team to meet the needs of the individuals coming in. And unlike in the regular criminal justice system where you have just the defense attorney and the prosecution talking, in treatment courts the only person who talks to the judge in the full courtroom is the client. So they talk to the judge directly, and as a team there's what we call a pre-case conferencing or staffing, where the team gets together before court to talk about what the client's goals are, what their objectives are, and what they accomplished, so that we can give them rewards for doing things that they were supposed to be doing, and then to hold them accountable for the things that they may not be doing. But the whole goal is to help them get into a lifestyle of recovery.
How do we look at, is it criteria for participation in a drug court as opposed to a criminal court?
So it is a criminal process for many of the adult programs, civil for our family dependency treatment courts, and in juvenile it kind of depends. But so it is voluntary in the sense that you can pick door number 1 or door number 2, and for many of these fields, door number 2 might be 10 to 15 years, and drug courts in the most programs are a minimum of 12 months. If you're taking the right population of high-risk, high-need offenders, it generally takes 18 to 24 months for them to get through the program successfully.
You're celebrating your 30-year anniversary. Can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of your instructional focus for training for this particular conference?
Yes, if you think about it, 30 years we're celebrating for drug courts. The first drug court began in 1989 in Miami. There was one. In 1990, there were 12 treatment courts. Today, we stand at over 3,500 courts in operation. There are 22 countries who have taken this drug court model and have implemented it in their country.
Wow.
So as we look at our training from back then, we were talking about, hey, do you want to start a drug court? Now now we have lots of research that tells you which populations work best in the program. We even have research that tells us that if a judge spends an average of 3 minutes with each participant, they will lower recidivism. So we now have went from here's how you start one to here's what the research says. Here's the programs that you should include. You should be doing more data focused collecting, even looking at racial and ethnic and gender disparity issues to ensure that our courts are collecting data on that so that they are not causing harm, they're not cherry picking who gets in, and making sure that we're getting those offenders who would otherwise not do well on supervision but would do well in these programs. Our goal is to provide an alternative that is community safe, but to treat people so we're not locking up people in hordes or sending them to jails and prison. And also, instead of violating people on probation and sending them to jails and prison, we have an alternative program that can meet their needs to address their substance use, their mental health, their trauma, to provide them with all the services that they need and connecting them with community so that they know where the community partners are. We can't do this work alone, and we can't do it only at the courthouse. We tell people, run away from the courthouse. You've got to connect them with community because if they don't get connected back with community, they won't be able to maintain their recovery.
In terms of your training, how do we, now my interest is to include pre-law students, STEM students that are interested in behavioral and research science for the public health aspect. How do we onboard or invite them in? I've heard things in the training here about community panels and school involvement, like you said, but can you describe that type of involvement?
So we have a number of courts that take on interns to have them come in and learn the process, learn what the courts are and walking through. We also have on our website online courses that they can take, and there are a couple of our practitioners who are judges who teaches at law schools who actually take into a curriculum to educate them about this model. So there have been multiple ways that we've been trying to intersect with other partners that are not necessarily our normal criminal justice partners, but other partners to help educate and get that information. All of our publications are free, so anyone can go online and download them and include them in their syllabuses.
Now you mentioned a lot of medical assistance treatment in this particular training session. What do you think the science and the outcomes are today in terms of MAT and the treatment course?
So what we know is that offering medication-assisted treatment can save lives. It is the difference between someone OD and someone dying than us being able to keep them alive. Getting them on the right medicine can assist them with being able to even sit into a group and hear the treatment information that they need so that they can take ownership of their lives and get off the cycle of coming back in and out of jail. There are many studies that show that some of these individuals will be on this medication for the rest of their lives. That's fine. We're not doctors over here, so we work with the medical community to tell us, what do we need to do? How do I need to treat them? How do we need to work with them? Our goal is all about saving lives, and every tool that is out there to assist us with saving lives, we want to be using those tools.
You've done a tremendous job with the information for veteran involvement in the court. Can you just explain that a little bit?
So we do a lot of work with the Veterans Administration. There are so many people who are coming back, getting involved in the criminal justice system, or now addicted to drugs and alcohol, or experiencing traumas as a result of their service. So we don't want to lock them up. We want to help and make sure that they get the services that they have earned. And we're just trying to do our part to provide an alternative so that they are not incarcerated.
How do we go to your website, and how do we follow this up with you or with your staff?
So as this sign says, All Rise, you can go to allrise.org, and that will take you to all of our resources. So it's www.allrise.org.
And your name again?
Carolyn Hardin. I'm the Chief of Training and Research with the National Association of Drug Court Professionals.
Carolyn, you're fantastic, and I think in the training that I've had in the last 2 days, I feel like I got an associate's degree in 2 days. God bless your work.
Well, thank you so much.
And I'm so indebted because the people that I've met from all over the country and out of the country have been passionate people about service.